For centuries, Sparta was synonymous with strength. Its soldiers were trained from a young age, hardened by discipline, and known for never backing down. They seemed invincible. But in 371 BC, something changed. At the Battle of Leuctra, the city of Thebes, led by the strategist Epaminondas, challenged Sparta and won. But it was not just a military victory. It was a profound shakeup of the Greek power structure. Epaminondas used an innovative fighting formation, breaking through the enemy line with intelligence, not brute force. In the midst of the battle, the Spartan king Cleobrontos was killed, something that had not happened in more than a century. The king's death not only disorganized the army, but also broke Spartan morale. For the first time in a long time, Greece saw Sparta bleeding. It was then that the downfall of a legend began, and Rome from afar was watching. Hold on. Before I continue, I need your help. YouTube will only share this video with more people if it has a lot of interaction. In other words, without your comment, this knowledge could be buried and never reach those who need it. If this content makes sense to you, comment 1. If you disagree, comment 0 and tell me why. I want to see at least 100 comments here so that YouTube understands that this subject needs to be spread. So comment now and be part of this mission to reveal the secrets of ancient Rome. After the fall of Leuctra, Sparta was never the same again. That image of an invincible city began to crack. The defeat touched something deeper than the number of soldiers lost. It affected the trust, the Spartan soul, and while Sparta tried to rebuild itself, other cities in Greece began to compete for space, such as Thebes and Athens. The balance of power became unstable. It was as if the battlefield was always in motion, without a true leader. It was in this scenario of confusion that a new power began to attract attention: Rome. While the Greeks were divided by internal disputes, Rome grew quietly, winning wars, accumulating power. And unlike the Greek cities, Rome knew how to play the game of politics with a steady hand. It didn't have to win every battle. It just had to enter at the right moment. And the moment was approaching. Rome was not just a strong army, it was a conquering machine. After winning Carthage in the Second Punic War, Rome became the master of the Western Mediterranean, but Rome was not content with half of it. While the Greek cities argued among themselves, Rome prepared to advance. The Roman legions were different from the Greek armies. They had discipline, hierarchy, and a unified command. In addition, Rome had a strategic advantage, knew how to wait. Instead of attacking outright, she began with agreements, promises of protection, and trade alliances. It was as if she extended her hand with a smile, and then shook it tightly. Greece, weakened by its own disputes, did not notice the noose closing in, and when she did, it was too late. Rome was in. While Rome expanded with diplomacy and military power, Greece was in pieces. Cities like Athens, Thebes, and Sparta still maintained their culture, but they were exhausted by decades of war. No one was truly leading. There were a lot of voices trying to rule at the same time. And Rome knew how to take advantage of this. It was in this scenario that the Achaean League, an alliance of several Greek cities that tried almost desperately to unite Greece and resist foreign influence. But the problem was that the League took too long to act. Rome had already infiltrated the country, and when the League tried to react, it was not just fighting a power. It was facing an empire that no longer had the patience for warnings or negotiations. From this point on, Rome would make it clear that anyone who challenged its advance would pay a very high price. The Achaean League tried to resist, but Rome was relentless. Things got worse when the League decided to attack Sparta, which at that time was an ally of the Romans. It was a fatal mistake. Rome saw this not just as an attack on Sparta, but as a direct challenge to your authority. And Rome brooked no defiance. The Senate acted quickly and sent one of its most experienced men, the consul Lucius Mummius, to deal with the situation. Mummius was not an impulsive general. He marched calmly but without mercy. Wherever he went, the cities of the League fell, one by one like dominoes. It was a calculated, methodical, and terrifying campaign. The Greeks realized too late that they were not fighting an ordinary city. They were up against an empire that was shaping the destiny of the ancient world with an iron fist. The high point, or rather, the darkest point, of this Roman offensive was the destruction of Corinth, one of the richest and most influential cities in Greece. When the legions arrived, there was no mercy. Corinth was sacked, burned, wiped off the map. The men who resisted were killed, the survivors enslaved. Women and children sold as merchandise. This was not just a military victory, it was a message. Rome wanted every city in the region to understand, whoever challenges, disappears. And it worked. The Achaean League was dissolved. Greece's independence, which was already hanging by a thread, was simply over. The ancient cradle of philosophy, art, and democracy was now just another province under the control of Rome. Greece, which had so influenced the world, was now governed by the one who now dictated the rules. If this content is making sense to you so far, do the following. Give me a signal. Comment 1 below so I know you're with me on this journey. And remember, YouTube only spreads this knowledge if it has a lot of interaction. If you haven't commented yet, now is the time. I want to see this video full of opinions, so that this topic continues to reach more people. After the fall of Corinth, Greece was officially incorporated into Roman rule. The former city-states lost the right to decide their own destiny. Rome divided the territory into provinces such as Achaia and Epirus, establishing governors and levying taxes. Greek culture did not disappear. It now served a Roman purpose. The temples, theaters, and statues remained standing, but the consuls of Rome were in charge. The dream of independence that the Achaean League had tried to maintain was buried under the ashes of Corinth. Rome had won without merely waging war. It had won by occupying, manipulating, and crushing when necessary. The Greeks were left to accept the new master of the ancient world. And the irony? Many Romans admired Greek culture. But admiration aside, they had trampled it under their feet. And as for Sparta, that city feared for centuries? Interestingly, it did not suffer the same tragic fate as Corinth. Because it supported Rome at the right time, Sparta was spared from destruction. But that does not mean it came out unscathed. The city that was once a symbol of strength became just a shadow of its former self. The soldiers who once marched with honor and discipline no longer existed. The warrior spirit was silenced. Sparta even maintained a certain semblance of autonomy, but it was just that. Appearance. Rome allowed the name and some Spartan traditions to survive, perhaps out of respect, perhaps out of political interest. But the truth is that Sparta, at that moment, no longer influenced anything. It was alive on the map, but dead in power. It was the end of an era, and Rome knew it as time passed. Sparta slowly disappeared from the political and military scene. It was no longer feared or consulted. It did not dictate rules. It did not form powerful alliances. It did not raise armies. It was a historical city, not a power. Meanwhile, Rome grew without restraint. It extended its dominion over the East, dominated trade routes, imposed laws, customs, and its own way of life. Sparta became part of the scenery, almost like a living memory of the past. The Romans even admired Spartan stories, and many used Sparta's values of discipline and courage to inspire their own soldiers. But that didn't change the reality. The former owner of the spears was now just an echo, a respected legend, but without any power. In the end, what was left of Sparta was myth. A city that once symbolized military perfection, but that could not withstand the test of time and the advance of an even greater empire. Rome did not destroy Sparta with swords, but with relevance. She allowed the city to survive, as long as it did not threaten her authority. And so Sparta became a symbol and inspiration, but never again a power. Meanwhile, Rome became the center of the world, writing the new rules of history, with strength, strategy, and vision. If this content made you see Sparta and Rome with different eyes, leave your like. This really helps spread this story to more people. And look, if you want to understand how Rome turned another ancient power into dust, click on the video that is appearing on the screen now. He will open a door that no one has shown you about the backstage of Roman domination. See,
You there?